Welcome to KRWG Public Media 2024 election coverage featuring New Mexico House District 34 candidates. Hello, I'm Anthony Moreno. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters are pleased to present this forum. The rules for this forum are candidates have up to 60 seconds to answer each question and should not mention their opponents in the answer. My co-moderator for this forum is Julie Whiteko with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. We now welcome both candidates, Democratic incumbent candidate Ray Lara and Republican candidate Larry Sedillo. Let's go ahead and start now with the first question for the incumbent. Representative Lara, why do you want to run for this seat?
Thank you for that question. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm running for this seat to continue the work that's already been taking place. So I've already worked on it, on making capital investments in my district. I've worked on educational issues in my district. And the continuity is very important to me that I continue to do that. And so I believe that I would be the best candidate, and I believe that I should continue to do this because of my relationships, because of the work that's already been done, and there's still a lot more that needs to be done.
Candidate Sedillo.
The reason I'm running, the number one reason I'm running is because of God. I believe in God, and I think we would bring it back into our society. The second reason is that with my experience as far as education, elementary K-2, reading intervention, and then vocational agriculture, I feel that I have the potential to do many things and improve our district along with our state.
All right, we're moving on to our next question.
Thank you. Candidate Sedillo, if elected, what are your highest priorities?
The number one priority is education, especially early childhood. And basically what I want to do there is I believe we need to have a specialist to test our kids in the sounds and letters and their writing from K, once they start at K, because that's not being done in majority of the schools. And what I did in Mesquite made the difference as far as making our kids successful. And I believe that is really key as far as education. Without their reading background, they can't do the future things for themselves. And then another thing that I want to do and stuff is, which are many other things, but the other thing is infrastructure in our county and stuff. Most of our communities and stuff do not still have proper roads. They don't have paving. They don't have sidewalks. They don't have lighting. They don't have, and a lot of things that need to be needed as far as our county is. And then also the environment is really a key. With Helena Chemical at Mesquite, and then we have problems there in Sunland Park. And then
all right, unfortunately that is our time.
Okay.
Representative Lara.
Hi, yes. So thank you for that. My number one priority has been and always and will be infrastructure and quality of life. Providing people with clean, safe drinking water, natural gas. Propane is very expensive. Community centers are very important as well. Spaces where families can congregate and children can go to safe spaces where they can be there for tutoring or for other things, for example. So to that point, I've invested millions of dollars already into our communities for infrastructure and for quality of life. So that's really important because our rural communities, our families don't have access to parks, to community centers where they can go. They have to come to Las Cruces or they have to go to El Paso. And I believe that if we build that infrastructure within our communities, we'd be able to keep our families in a safe place where they really don't have to go spend any money.
Okay, the next question, we're going to stay with the incumbent candidate. What state laws, if any, do you believe should be passed regarding firearm safety?
Firearm safety. So I thank you for that. I've been a co-sponsor of several firearm safety bills. The most recent one that I did was myself and Representative Leader Ryan Lane on the Republican side. We introduced a bill and passed a bill that regarding the felon use of firearms, because even though that is a federal law, we weren't prosecuting that at the state level. So we introduced that bill and we were able to get that bill through both chambers and signed by the governor. So that was a really important bill for us. And so what I believe as far as the bills are concerned, obviously safe storage is very important. Red flags are very important, but at the same time, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we don't violate any Second Amendment laws regarding the use and the holding and the keeping and the ownership of firearms.
Thank you. Candidate Sedillo.
Well, I believe in the Second Amendment. It's a key to our Constitution. And I believe also at the same time and stuff, we need to protect our kids. You know, have the place where they can store it, where they're going to have access to it. You know, there's numerous major problems here of the number of schools that have access to the farms and use things to damage our community, damage our kids and stuff. At the same time, a lot of the laws that are on the books and stuff protect our citizens. And at the same time, we need to make sure that the people that are going to do harm to us and stuff don't have access to those guns. But I believe a lot of the laws that we have are on the books that are protecting our citizens. They allow the police to do the things that they need to do to protect our citizens. And I think that's a key for our future.
Thank you.
Candidate Sedillo, what can state lawmakers do to address violent crime and property crime in New Mexico?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do is that we need to start from the early elementary level first, because I believe the things that I've done and stuff as far as bringing leadership and where the kids have confidence in themselves and stuff. So as they travel through school from junior high all the way to high school, then they're looking at things to make them better and protect themselves. If we don't do those things initially with them, then they're going to be led by other groups, whether it's a gang, whether it's a adult or whoever else that's going to do damage. But I believe that's something that needs to be taken care of. At the same time, like here in Las Cruces, we don't have a facility that can work with our police and our other departments and stuff to access those people and provide services for them. And so I think that would be something else we could work on.
Thank you. Representative Lara.
Thank you for that. So I believe in addressing the root causes. For example, I'm going to give you an example. So there's a lot of, when it comes to property theft, one of the reasons there's property theft because it's lucrative. People can steal things, steal copper, steal catalytic converters, and go sell them. So I believe, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to work on, that's one of the things I'm going to work on this legislative session, is I want to give the Regulation and Licensing Department more authority over the scrap yards. This way, we can have agents go to the scrap yards, investigate, see what's going on, and that way, because if we prevent the scrap yards from illegally purchasing these resources, that cuts off that revenue stream for crime, for criminals. So if we beef up that portion of it, I believe that it'll eliminate a lot of those things, because then these criminals won't have copper and catalytic converters to go sell to these scrap yards. And so by beefing up and allowing the...
All right, that is our time. We're going to move on to the next question. We're going to stay with incumbent candidate Lara. What do you feel the state legislature can do to improve mental health services?
Thank you for that. So mental health services, obviously the first thing that we need to do is invest the money into it. CYFD, Health and Human Services, because if we invest the money and give those agencies that funding that they need, then they can hire qualified personnel. An issue that we have in the state is that we have good people working for us, but unfortunately our salaries aren't competitive with the private market. So we have to make ourselves a lot more competitive. We have to make ourselves a lot more attractive as a state to be as a state employee in order to provide these services. So I believe that if we give these agencies the funding that they need to hire the people that they need, and then that way we can meet those staffing goals, and we'll be able to provide those essential services to New Mexicans.
Candidate Sedillo.
Well, I have a child, our middle child boy and stuff, and he's autistic. And it took us 7 years to get the DD waiver. And that is too long. Where in California, they can get it a lot sooner in other states. I think that needs to be improved in our state. If it takes that long to get the DD waiver and get the services, it hurts the family, it hurts people in the community, whatever else goes. But I think mental health is a key issue for our people here, because that's what's leading for the problems in the future, where they have the theft, they're doing the drugs and doing all the things that are affecting us in a bad way. But I believe mental health has to be a priority, and Senator Kay Papen did a lot of stuff to help our state. And I think we need to follow with that, and that's what I plan to do.
Thank you.
Candidate Sedillo, if elected, how do you plan on addressing substance abuse in New Mexico?
Well, I think that the root cause of the substance abuse is because a lot of times is the individual doesn't have a way to go or somebody to assist them and like that, and they get fallen into the cracks, whether it's in junior high and high school. And I had a friend that was in the junior high and stuff, and he was having problems, and then he was turning to the drugs. And I told him, I said, I think you're having problems with this because you're not strong enough. You're not confident in yourself. And I think if we can teach our kids to be confident and deal things to make themselves better, in the future, they're not going to lean toward the drugs. At the same time now, we have a lot of drugs pouring into our country because of the way the border is. And I believe that needs to be changed. But at the same time, at the local level and stuff, I believe that we need to provide the services and identify people that are having problems and see where the benefits or access for services for them, are needed and then are supplied for them.
Representative Lara.
Thank you for that. So I see two points here. Number one is that people start abusing alcohol and drugs as a coping mechanism. And number two, we have prescription drugs that are being misused, and where people become addicted to the prescriptions that they're taking. So we have to look at a two-pronged approach. So one is obviously mental health support systems or other support systems that help people with a coping mechanism. But at the same time, we also have to work with our medical community and our pharmacists to make sure that the people who are taking these prescriptions are taking it in moderation, taking it in the way they're supposed to, and not going back every couple of weeks to get another refill. So there's two approaches that I see as the number one is the societal part, the mental health, the support services, and the second side is the medical side, where I believe that doctors should be able to have alternatives to, as opposed to prescribing those types of medications.
Thank you. We're going to stay with you, incumbent candidate Lara, for our next question. What's your plan to address affordable housing in New Mexico?
Thank you for that. So my plan for affordable housing, I supported a bill that we passed this past session where a fund was created where developers can apply for loans for infrastructure, for low income, for affordable housing. So affordable housing is very important because, we need homes, we need spaces where families can live safely and comfortably. And I right now I'm working with the city of Sunland Park. The city itself is going to look at taking on and building affordable housing. So this is a new concept that we're looking at that is a direct result of this fund that we created that was passed into law and signed by the governor. And so there's a lot of different options that we can look at, but the key thing is that we provide different entities the option, whether they be developers, municipalities, counties, to look at alternatives where we can create and build affordable housing for New Mexicans.
Candidate Sedillo.
Well, I think right now I'm working in a capacity, I don't know if it's a board member or whatever else right now with the Vista del Sol. And they're a corporation that incorporates low-income housing here in our county. And at the same time, I think we got to be looking at the big picture of the people that need the low-income housing and stuff. And then what are they needing? Are they needing an apartment? Are they needing a house? Or what are they needing? And then how can they support themselves or be able to pay for it? I think we look at that angle first before we start building those communities. At the same time, the location has to be important. We can't just be building houses everywhere. We don't want to take our agriculture land and use it for development for low-income housing. It has to be affordable, and at the same time, it has to be close to areas where there's infrastructure and people have access to things. And so I believe those things have to be met as far as that goes. And then also the financing. The companies that are going to make the loans or provide the loan and stuff, we've got to look at our interest rates. And so now it's really tough for people to get into housing and stuff because of our economy. And that has to change.
All right, thank you.
Candidate Sedillo, what reforms would you support to improve New Mexico's educational ranking?
Well, I believe right now and stuff, and I think just like I mentioned before and stuff, the early childhood, the testing of the kids and the letters and the sounds and the writing and stuff, because through that, I found and stuff, especially the writing itself, I found with that writing, there's usually a problem in their left hemisphere or right hemisphere, and it affects them in their development, so it takes a little longer for them to learn to read. At the same time, if that testing is done at an early age, then the testing that can be done for the kids that are very low, that can be done early age and not put money into 3, 4, 5, and 6 grades. And I believe that has to be done. At the same time, since I taught agriculture, and I believe agriculture is a key part. I built an environmental park at our school. And our kids being exposed to agriculture, things that grow that are alive, it relates to being something that they feel important. And it helps them as far as their development. At the same time, when they see things that are not alive, they're not just seeing their laptops or their phone. they're going to be more likely to do things that's going to help them and for them to also treat people better. And I think that's a key.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lara?
Thank you. Would you mind repeating the question,
Sure,
please?
of course. What reforms would you support to improve New Mexico's educational ranking?
Thank you for that. So I'm looking at sponsoring a bill, working with a group from Santa Fe, Think New Mexico, regarding classroom sizes. One of the biggest issues that we have is there are too many children in the classroom as opposed to having one teacher. So we may have 30 students in a classroom and one teacher for those students. So those ratios are very high, and we have to work on with PED to make sure that those ratios are evened out. So I'll be introducing a bill in order to do that, gradually phasing that in. I also believe that we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the Yazzie Martinez. There's a lot of ask from the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, and what we're trying to do is, work towards getting those issues addressed, because we want the equitable education of all New Mexico's children. And so education is a very big subject. It is, and it's a monolith, and it's something that we have to take piece by piece. But first, the most important thing is right now is making sure that there aren't too many kids in the classroom for one teacher.
Moving on to our next question, we're going to stay with candidate Lara. If elected, what steps would you take to address healthcare challenges in New Mexico?
Thank you for that. So we as a legislature have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into healthcare. In particular, what's going to affect us here is rural healthcare. So we've made investments in rural healthcare. We have incentivized students with loan repayment for nurses and for doctors, in particular at UNM, at the UNM School of Medicine. And what we really need to look at is providing opportunities for our doctors and our healthcare providers to go into more rural areas or to underserved areas. And the number one thing that I believe that would really help with that would be telehealth. Telehealth is going to be key to that, because it gives people more accessibility. They can just go to a space. If they don't have internet, they can go to an office or in another facility and utilize the facilities there for those treatments.
Candidate Sedillo.
Well, I think one of the things that we need to look at as far as the access, as far as that goes, especially in the county, and we have a lot of rural areas. And I believe that is something. It's like anything you do. And see, I sell vegetables and things, and I go to businesses to do it. And if we go to the people and see what their needs are, as far as the health, then we can know exactly how we treat them. At the same time, you got to look as far as recruitment of doctors. And right now, as far as if there's lawsuits against doctors like that, we got to make sure that that's something fair, that's encourageable for doctors from across the country to come to New Mexico. And right now we have shortages because of that. At the same time, we got to look at our hospitals. Are they serving the needs of our community? Now we have 3 hospitals in Las Cruces like that. And so each of them should be equitable. They should have the quality and quantity of needs and service that they are. They've improved a lot and stuff. I say it's a continual thing. We got to improve how we treat our people through their health and then access.
All right, that is our time.
Candidate Sedillo, how can the legislature address water issues in an increasingly arid state?
Well, we've been in a drought for a number of years here in New Mexico, especially southern New Mexico, and it's affected our water supply. At the same time, we got to look at since there's been lawsuits as far as the water quantity that we access, instead of it going down to Texas, we need to reevaluate that and see if there's a possibility we can receive more water for our farmers. At the same time, I said the water is a key for agriculture. And since we have a huge number of pecan trees and that are in our valley and stuff, they require a lot of water. And then there's also equitable for the small farmers. So we need to look at it in a long range forecast, because if we're using too much water and our aquifer draws down too much, then it's going to affect the small farmers first, and then it's going to affect the large farmers later on. But we got to look at agriculture as a key asset for our state, especially in our county. And it's a key for everything for us to grow. Since I'm a small farmer, I'm dependent on water, and I have a well, and it really assists me. So we need to look as far as if there's other ways we can serve our needs. Okay.
Thank you. Representative Lara?
Thank you. The role of the legislature in this is to provide the funding to our experts, to our state engineer, to our attorney general, because they are the ones in the trenches. They're the ones that are doing the work. They're the experts. Just recently, I went to a debriefing with our Attorney General, and they were explaining to us what was going on with the court proceedings regarding the Supreme Court. And it looks, New Mexico is right now in the best position that we can be as far as the courts are concerned, because Texas isn't really fighting us too much on a certain aspect of it. However, since it does involve the United States, the federal government has decided, you know what, we're going to intervene in this because we don't like the agreement that New Mexico and Texas came up with. So the role of the legislature, once again, is to provide the funding to our Attorney General and to our state engineer to make sure that those experts are the ones on the ground working on these issues. And that way, we can make sure that New Mexico gets the water that we're entitled to.
Okay, we're going to stay with candidate Lara for our next question. What is your plan to improve public transportation?
Public transportation, thank you for that. We do have some public transportation in the southern part of the county. The South Central Transit District provides transportation. I believe that in order for it to thrive, there has to be some kind of incentive for people to utilize the transportation system. I know in the past they've been able to give free rides. There's internet. There's internet access on the buses. So there are things there already in place. However, I believe that we should expand it to more stops. If we expand it to more smaller communities, like say for example in Chambonillo, there's not a stop, but in La Union there is. So the people in Chambonillo really don't have any. They can't utilize it. So in order for us to expand that, number one, provide funding once again to the transit district, and number two, so they're able to expand the stops to make more expand the stops and make them more frequent in the smaller communities that don't have that now.
Candidate Sedillo.
I think one thing you need to look at, as far as, since we only have like one company that's providing the services to the county as far as for our community, we need to look at other options to where we'd have other companies that would be invested in our transit system. And I think that's something to look at, through grants and other ways. Because if we had more services, more availability of ways to travel from one place to another effectively and safely, I think that's something that would be key for us to look at. At the same time, and I agree with my candidate that we need to have stops in all the locations. And then the times need to be where they're available. I mean, here at NMSU now, there's ability where they can get rides from one part of the school and then travel through you don't have to walk through the whole campus in order to get to a class, whatever else. But I think it has to be planned and ahead of time. And then as we meet with the county individuals from the different communities, there has to be access to those meetings and where people are aware of what's going to happen, and so they can make plans.
All right, moving on to our next question.
Candidate Sedillo, what changes, if any, need to be made in the tax structure of the state?
Well, I think right now it seems like our taxes are at a higher rate and stuff, and I believe we got to really realize that taxes are a key that people have to pay, especially for property taxes. And at the same time, we got to look at, instead of taxing our people so much, we need to see how we can support them instead of just taxing them. And I think the way our government is running now, especially in the state levels and like that, he says we're overtaxing our people and stuff. And so even for seniors, it's hard for them. Right now, people are barely making check to check, especially if you're a fixed income. But I think that needs to be checked as far as the regulation, as far as that goes. And at the same time, we got to be thinking of our people first, not income.
Thank you. Representative Lara?
A couple of things. Number one is, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but we've worked on, and when I say we, the legislature, is the tax pyramiding, where businesses who manufacture items or manufacture parts are taxed on their supplies, and then they pass that tax on to somebody else. So it creates a pyramiding type of thing. So it puts a tax upon the tax upon the tax. So we've tried to address that in the legislature. That's one of our priorities to do that. The other thing is the gross receipts tax. So, for example, just this past year, we passed a bill that exempted child care centers from charging gross receipts tax to the parents. So not only that is that saving the businesses, because many of those businesses were eating that cost or passing it on to the families. So we were able to get rid of that tax. So the taxes have to be progressive.
Right. That is our time. We're going to move on to our final question, and we're going to stay with the incumbent candidate. What would you propose to diversify New Mexico's economy and promote sustainable economic growth?
Thank you for that. And I can speak on Doña Ana County and what happens in my legislative district. The Santa Teresa Industrial Park, Santa Teresa Port of Entry is a gem. We have so much potential there to create not to create, but to continue to grow economic development. During the pandemic, the Santa Teresa Port of Entry, the Santa Teresa Industrial Base kept on working. The COVID pandemic did not affect them. For them, it was still business as usual. And that was key to helping our state in generating that revenue that we so desperately need, aside from oil and gas. So the biggest thing I would say is investment in infrastructure, but investment in areas and in regions like Santa Teresa, where we can expand and diversify the offerings not only for employment, but for the tax base as well.
Candidate Sedillo.
Well, right now, because of our federal government, the way things are happening now, the permits for oil permits are almost non-existent. There's not very much availability of the oil, and we're hurting our economy. And oil is a key part of providing our income in our state. And that has to be done at the federal level. But at the same time, here at the county level, they're planning to make a road from Santa Teresa, I believe, to our area. And I believe that is going to make a difference as far as providing jobs, opportunities for our county, opportunities for our state. You know, we need to look at a broad range of the future. We're not looking about what we're going to do today, what we're going to do in the future. I've met with the mayor here of Las Cruces, and he calls it a threefold. Basically, we're working with Juarez, El Paso, and Las Cruces. And we need to work all together as far as making things more economic. The same thing, tourism is a key. And I'd like to do, as far as once I get into the legislature and stuff, is to build a museum that would support all the different communities.
That is our time, and that concludes our New Mexico House District 34 Candidate Forum. We want to thank our candidates, incumbent Democratic candidate Lara and Republican candidate Larry Sedillo. Thank you to our co-moderator, Julie Whitego with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. A reminder, you can stay updated with local election coverage by visiting the KRWG News Election Center at our website, krwg.org. I'm Anthony Moreno. Thank you for joining us. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th.